This is a confusing and complicated gospel today, that Jesus is telling us, if you don't love me more than your family, if you don't love me more than your children, it is a sort of a bit intimidating. It's a bit confronting to be placed with that. But the thing is, he's saying, you have to love me so much more than anyone and anything else, that you need to choose me above all else. But one thing that really struck me in this gospel is that verse, that anyone who wants to follow me must pick up their cross and follow me. Now, when Jesus was talking about picking up a cross, and he was talking to the people around him, they knew exactly what that was. They had seen crucifixions, many crucifixions, and people, those who were being crucified, would carry the cross, would carry the horizontal part of the cross towards their death. And so this is what Jesus is saying. If you're going to follow me, it's a death sentence. You have to pick up your cross and follow me. But let me explain. You see, most of my life, most of my work is working with young people. I work in youth evangelization, and I travel around the world. I speak to millions of teenagers every year. And the temptation, a big temptation for me as a speaker, is to tell these young people that following Jesus is easy. It's telling these young people that once they follow Jesus, all their problems will go away. It's good marketing if I could do that, but that would be the biggest disservice to them I could do. I'll be deceiving them. I'd be lying to them if I said that. Because following Jesus is one of the most difficult things that you could ever do. If you want an easy life, don't choose to follow Jesus. Because Jesus says, follow me, pick up your cross and walk to your death, which is absolutely crazy. Who would use advertising in that way? But it is so true, because to be a Christian, to be a Catholic, is countercultural. When everyone is doing what feels right, the Catholic has to remain strong and choose what pleases God and what is for eternal life, not for this life. Sometimes I feel like I want to run away. Sometimes I think, as the priest, I think it would be so much easier if I wasn't a Catholic. I could do what I want when I want. But the thing is, I cannot, because I've experienced this incredible perspective, this incredible vision of eternity, of seeing things through the eyes of God. And once you've seen that, once you've caught a glimpse of that, then you find the strength and the power to carry the cross. It is so hard, but it is possible. And I'm going to tell you how it is possible. When I was young, my parents used to take us to this marketplace in the capital city of the country where I was born, the country of Malta. And we'd go to this marketplace, and it was a really busy marketplace, the flea market, where they'd sell all kinds of things. They'd sell live animals to children's toys, to cold drinks, to livestock. Everything was sold in this market, and it was really busy. So this Sunday we all went as a family to this marketplace. And as we're walking in, as we're going into this marketplace, my sister, who was about 3 years old, I was about 4, and my sister, who was in the arms of my mother, says, "Mom, listen, I want to walk alone." And so my mom, knowing that she is right behind my sister, lets my sister walk alone. And so she's walking to this marketplace, through this marketplace. And it was really exciting, and she was excited to walk alone. But as she's walking, things start to get a bit busier. Things start to get a little bit more complicated in the marketplace, because people are passing all over her. She's really small at this point, and people around her are really big, and they're moving fast, and they're buying, and they're selling, and they're shouting, and they're screaming to sell their stuff. And my sister starts to get a little bit confused, because everything around her is so overwhelming. And as she's walking through this marketplace, all of a sudden she starts to get dizzy and confused. And mom is right there behind her, but she walks ahead, panicking, thinking that she's alone. And so she walks even faster. And as she starts to walk faster, there's a puddle on the floor. And she falls into that puddle, and her dress is all dirty. But what happened at that point is that my mother ran towards her and picked her up and held her in her arms. And my sister was crying because she felt so overwhelmed. She felt that she couldn't carry this. She couldn't deal with this. And then, as she calms down, she opens her eyes. And she, from that point, sees a whole new perspective. The table legs and the overwhelming crowds around her all of a sudden start to make sense. You know, people are walking in some kind of orderly direction. The table legs that she was seeing before now are tables with exciting toys on them, with live animals, bunny rabbits. And she starts to smile, and she starts to feel secure because she knows she's in Mama's arms. All of a sudden, she can walk through the marketplace confident. She can walk through the marketplace knowing that she's going to get through this. And not only get through this, but also find joy and excitement as she walks through this marketplace. Now, this is a kind of analogy. Analogies are imperfect, and I know there are going to be comments of where this analogy is not right, but let me try and explain this to you. This is our Christian life. This is our Catholic life. That sometimes it is overwhelming. Sometimes we cannot deal with it. Sometimes it feels like we don't have the strength to move on. And this is where, even though we think we're alone, even though life is overwhelming, we need to know that Jesus is right there behind us. God the Father right there behind us. And when we fall, when we feel overwhelmed, all we need to do is to stop. And God will lift us up. And then at that point, that's where we can find the strength, because we feel secure in the arms of a loving Father. And not only that, you see, things that didn't make sense before. Why should I walk through this marketplace? There's no joy, there's no peace, there's just frustration, there's just desperation. What's the point of this? But once you're in the Father's arms, it starts to make sense. Things start to make sense because you start to see things from the perspective of the Father. You have the same eye view as God the Father, and that is the perspective of eternity, the perspective of His love. You see, it's difficult to forgive. It's difficult to love those who don't love us back. But when we see it from the eyes of God, I forgive because I have been forgiven. I forgive because I see things from the eyes of God, that I know that if I forgive, I'm able not to let hate control me. I'm living for eternity, not to be justified in this life. When I find it difficult to love, I can love because I realize that I am loved and that the joy of eternity is more important to me than making my point, than holding back love. Suffering and pain, I'm able to endure that because, you see, I know that God the Father is with me through the suffering. He has a preferential option for those who are poor, those who are suffering, those who are struggling. And He holds us at this point, and I know that that suffering is going to draw me to more of a perspective of eternity. So this is why we need to spend time in the arms of the Father. Because I can tell you this, that you will not have the strength to pick up your cross and follow Jesus unless you allow God the Father to carry you, to lead you to the cross, to open your eyes, to see the world through His eyes, through seeing this life through the eyes of eternity. And so we continue to pray, and we continue to turn our hearts towards a God who loves us, a God who leads us to the cross with joy.